Hello and welcome to the home of the Ghost Owl, and here we are continuing our series looking at what is available to buy now. I don't have any of the new content like some creators for Warhammer The Old World, so I can only bring you what I have. And so on the 20th, we can start looking more into faction focuses and so on that we looked at prior to this with the 8th edition books. So I thought I'd try and do something what I thought would be useful for everybody, which is continuing the conversation of actually what can you buy now if you don't want Bretonnians and Tomb Kings. We've covered off Beastmen as a core faction. We've covered two legacy factions, the Demons and the Dark Elves. Now, all of those armies to date have got pretty much the bulk of what you'd need for an army and aren't missing too many items from their list. So we're now onto the Dwarfs. Dwarfs is a core faction and traditionally been a reasonably popular faction. But as a core faction, yes, we can expect a full release for them with an arcane journal. We can expect new miniatures and everything for them. So we're going to see what you can buy today. And like a number of the core factions, they're not in the best place. Like to try and build a full army of dwarfs today, it's going to be a challenge. So let's take a look and see what you could buy in advance of any full release if dwarfs are your thing, as opposed to Tomb Kings and Bretonnians. So as we go into the first one, Dwarf Lords. So there's one option. In Age of Sigmar, it's listed as the Warden King. It's in the Cities of Sigmar section, and that's it. That's your choice. So quite lacking in terms of it's got no mounts, lacking in terms of its options. You know, actually a Lord comes with quite a few options with additional hand weapon, great weapons, crossbows, all that sort of stuff. So quite limited, a fixed miniature. But there is a Lord there, and if you like him, you're going to need a Lord, and so, you know, a Dwarf Lord, you know, he's absolutely usable as that. Right, there is a single Rune Lord available, and again, missing things like mount, as in the Anvil of Doom and stuff like that, and obviously all the different options, but there is a Rune Lord available, and so if you did want to get ahead of the game and pick something up, there is a Rune Lord. Chances are there's going to be a few more of these Lords and Rune Lords available upon a Dwarf release. Maybe we'll see some made to order as well. But right now you can buy both of these guys as Lords on the Warhammer web store. So in terms of Demon Slayer, so you've got a Demon Slayer Lord. Now, options here. Now, there is no specific Demon Slayer, but there is these Fire Slayers in Age of Sigmar, and you've got one here, which is the Doom Seeker. In my mind, he would actually be quite a nice option for a Demon Slayer Lord. The other option is you could go down the route of using Gotrek Gurnison, obviously a named character, but there's no reason why you couldn't actually use him as a Demon Slayer Lord. Both pretty cool looking miniatures and fit the bill and the aesthetic that you might want from a Slayer. So there you go. I think there are three options there. There's not a lot of variety. I'd expect more variety to come upon full release, but you can get ahead of the game and go for these guys. As we move into the heroes, and again, we are staying away from the unique heroes. You need a Runesmith. Well, we saw there was a Rune Lord before. You could use this guy also as a Runesmith. No reason why you couldn't do that. There is no actual option for a Runesmith. So if you are looking to pick him up as such, you're looking for the Rune Lord. And like we've seen before, with lack of availability of miniatures, there's no reason why you couldn't use a Lord or a Runesmith. He could fit the bill for both. Also, one of the other heroes is a Dragon Slayer. So in the Age of Sigmar Fire Slayer area, you've got the Grimwrath Berserker. In my mind, he makes quite a good Dragon Slayer. He's different from what we saw before in the Demon Slayer, especially given he's got kind of the dragon thing on top of his helmet. Actually, that, you know, would stand out quite nicely as being a Dragon Slayer hero. So he would definitely be my choice if I was looking to go down a Slayer route and have a Dragon Slayer in my army as a hero. Now, of course, moving into core. Core is a key part of the army. That's kind of what you make up a significant part of it of. So let's see how the dwarves come up. They don't have any basic dwarf warriors. nothing available, but Longbeards are currently available. Though one thing I have noted is that it looks like a lot of people have been ahead of the game, as I can see a number of these units going to temporarily out of stock. But Longbeards here, absolutely available right now, and a cool looking miniature, and definitely in the core area. Bearing in mind, though, certainly in previous editions, they were almost twice the points cost of your basic warrior. So they are not cheap. I haven't seen the rules in the army list or anything for the dwarves, so I can't comment on that yet. We will. Next up is that's it for core. So you have one option right now for dwarves core, and that is Longbeards. There is nothing else. So that is a particular problem for the dwarfs right now. If you wanted to put a dwarf army together right now, you are restricted to pretty much Longbeards is your only option from Warhammer. Now, as we move into special, hammerers are available right now to buy, and a good option. And certainly for my dwarf army, I would be wanting at least a single unit of hammerers in there. But they're available, which is good. So in your special category, not doing too bad. We've got iron breakers as well. So again, you've got two different choices, hammerers and iron breakers, both available in the dwarf special category. So your sort of elite infantry is still there. And that's in the Cities of Sigmar section. You've also got Slayer options. So there are Slayers in the special category. Again, there are no specific Slayers, but if you look in the Age of Sigmar area, you've got Volkite Berserkers. In my mind, these guys, when you actually look at what a Slayer has, 2 hand weapons, you've got your command group in there. There's no reason why I don't think these guys could be used as a basic unit of Slayers. I think that would absolutely work perfectly well. So definitely an option there in the absence of anything else. But again, bearing in mind, we don't know when dwarfs are going to be released. I've heard rumours that they're going to be one of the earlier factions to be released following Tomb Kings and Bretonnians. But when you say earlier, what is that? 3 months, 6 months, and so on. If you want to play dwarves in Warhammer The Old World now, and you're relatively new or don't have a complete collection and you want some Slayers, I think these would be a reasonable option. So when we move into the rare category, you can see dwarfs not having a lot of their units at all. Iron Drakes, however, are still available. So you can pick those up. They're available on the store in the Cities of Sigmar section. Doomseekers, well, you've got the Doomseeker here. He comes as a single miniature. The unit size, if you look back in the old book, was 2 to 5, so you're going to need multiples of these. Could get expensive quite quickly because they are sold as individual miniatures. But Doomseeker is available. And the last couple of units in the rare category, the Gyrocopter, again, still available to buy, which is good. Again, giving you something a little bit different. And absolutely, I don't know what's in the list, but I expect a Gyrocopter and a Gyro Bomber to be in there. I mean, again, it's an iconic dwarf unit. Can't imagine it wouldn't be. But I can't 100% say that. Hammerers, Iron Breakers and all that, I think you're absolutely fine with. I'm sure the Gyrocopters and Gyro Bombers will be in there, but it remains to be seen. They're a core army, so they're restricted by timeline. And I don't 100% remember when these things were first introduced. So hopefully they will be in the timeline, but just something to be wary of. As a core army, they're going to be restricted by timeline in terms of what units they can and cannot have in their army list. And the final one there, as we said, is the Gyro Bomber, and the same applies to what we just said to the Gyrocopter. And there you go, that brings us pretty much to the end of the dwarfs, what's available. Not a lot, right? There's not a lot there overall, and I think you're going to struggle. I mean, can you make an army with the dwarfs? Yeah, I mean, you can fill up your core with Longbeards, and you've got a Rune Lord and a Dwarf Lord there, and you've got a bunch of stuff in the special category, and then you've got the Gyrocopter and Gyro Bomber, and you've got a few Slayer options. But you've got none of the dwarf artillery, you've got none of the dwarf ranged units in terms of their handgunners, or the Thunderers or Quarrelers or anything like that. So while you could make a dwarf army, it isn't going to feel like a dwarf army, right? You're literally just going to have melee infantry. So overall, I think they're in a pretty rough spot right now. as it stands today. So, the hope is that when they mean a relatively early faction is not too distant future, we're going to see dwarfs. If that's something that you're interested in, I hope for your sake it's going to come soon, because I think they're in a rough spot in terms of a new player wanting to pick up dwarfs right now today. And I think that's pretty obvious when you look at what is actually missing. So in terms of heroes, you're missing your Thane, your Master Engineer, and your Brewmaster. You've got no Anvil of Doom mount. Core, you're missing a whole bunch of core. So your basic Dwarf Warriors, that's your cheapest infantry. You're missing your Quarrelers with the crossbows and the Thunderers with the handgun. So you're missing all your ranged infantry. Special, you're missing your Miners and then your Rangers, again as a ranged infantry. You're missing all of your artillery pieces, your cannon, your grudge thrower, your bolt thrower, fire thrower, organ gun, all of that stuff, which you'd expect to see 1, 2, or even 3 of those in a dwarf army. Dwarf army is known as gun lines. The grudge break. You're missing a vast amount of stuff. So as I say, that's why I think if you were building a dwarf army with what is currently available, it won't feel like a dwarf army should feel. And it certainly won't feel and play like I think the Dwarf Army will feel and play like when they get their release. So something to bear in mind. But you're in a pretty good spot. If you want to get ahead of the game, buy some iron breakers, hammerers, longbeards. No doubt in my mind they're going to be a key part of a Dwarf Army going forward. So certainly getting ahead of the game, buying them, painting them up. But I think getting a good 2,000 point game with dwarfs right now is going to be tough. For these, this is all applying to people that are either new or don't have complete collections in this faction. Okay, that brings us to the end of the dwarfs, and they're available to buy. So that's the second of our core armies, and so far the worst of the core armies that we've covered. The one exception that I'm going to talk about, of course, is the High Elves. The High Elves, we're not even going to be doing a video on it because they actually don't have anything you can buy. So the High Elves in absolutely the worst spot overall because they don't even get a video because nothing to buy. But Dwarves, definitely not in a good spot right now. So interestingly, what we're seeing is the legacy factions. There's way more to buy for the legacy factions right now. So you've actually got more chance of building a fully complete army with loads of options in a legacy faction today than you do with the core factions, with the exception, of course, for Tomb Kings and Bretonnians, obviously, who are part of the initial release. There you go, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, give it a thumbs up. If you didn't, give it a thumbs down. Let me know why in the comments down below. As always, if you want to see more content, hit the subscribe button, free for you to do. It means a lot for me, so thank you for that in advance. You've been watching The Ghost Owl. I'll see you all very, very soon.